Longhorn Nation, Sooner fans, welcome to episode 27 of the Bevo Podcast, the only podcast exclusively dedicated to covering the greatest rivalry in college football, the University of Texas and the University of Oklahoma. Kevin, maybe from your perspective, but definitely not from Oklahoma's, it did not seem like the greatest rivalry in college football. In fact, it seemed like the greatest lopsided butt-kicking Oklahoma has had in a tremendously long time. I was there. I was live. But I can't even go first. To the victor go the spoils. How does Longhorn fan feel today? And what does this mean for the program going forward? Kevin Miller.
Well, let me tell you, Texas fan is fired up right now. Listen, I picked Texas to win the game. I thought this was a game that they could win by a big score. But given what we've seen before is why I went with a 34-23 more conservative prediction. But again, never in a million years did I think the score would be 49-0. I thought it could be maybe 49-24, 49-30, something like that. But 49-0. It blows my mind. I felt like I was dreaming, seriously.
Kevin, it's the it's Texas's first shutout of Oklahoma since 1965. And with the exception of two drives, it was never even close that Oklahoma was going to score. I would love to give your defense all the credit in the world, and I think you deserve a lot of the credit. But by God, our offense was terrible. I mean, what was Texas fan thinking watching our offense?
Well, in the first drive, both teams go. Did you guys go 3 and out in the first drive? You might have got one first down.
We got right? Eric Gray ran for 12 yards. We got a first down and then three plays and punt.
Okay. I thought it was a decent drive there. You got the first down, and then the second drive by OU. You switch to the Wildcat, caught Texas off guard, caught me off guard. I mean, I figured you would have some sort of wrinkle, and I thought it was really effective on that second drive. But once you got down into the red zone and got stopped on fourth down, man, I think that was really demoralizing for OU there.
Kevin, it was inexplicable. We're sitting in the stands. There is a fan. You know how you're at the OU Texas game, really any OU game or Texas game, I'm sure, and you talking to the fans around you, and and this guy's like, well, I don't let the actions of 19 and 20-year-olds determine the rest of my day or week or year or whatever. And I'm like, okay, it's very mature of you, I guess. But I, on the other hand, tend to care about watching a football game. But anyway, after that drive, when that occurred, okay, so Braden Willis is playing the quarterback position as a Wildcat, and him and Farouk and Gray and Major are moving the ball, right? It is a very effective chunk play, keeping Texas's defense on the field, your offense off the field, and you're thinking to yourself, hey, we might not win this game, but this is a very effective strategy to slow Texas down. At least, and that's all within the first drive, Kevin. And Braden Willis picks up a 4th and 2 out of the Wildcat. Runs because he's a big guy, runs straight ahead, kind of reminded me of the old Belldozer. Excuse me. Picks up the first down, and out of nowhere, Davis Bevel comes back in at quarterback. And it's like you knew what was going to happen. 3 plays later, you've got a 4th down. We do run a fake field goal, but then we go 3, but then we turn it over on downs. The offense completely stalled, and it just didn't make any sense to me. And so I'm yelling and screaming, and I tell this guy in front of me, I'm like, okay, maybe I can't yell at the 18 or 19-year-olds, but I can yell at the 40-year-old offensive coordinator that thinks it's the right idea to freaking put Davis Bevel back in the game when you've moved the ball 60 yards. I just couldn't believe it. Texas didn't stop us in the Wildcat.
Yeah.
Now, I say all of this. with the clear understanding that we were not going to win that ball game. Okay, let me be very clear. Nothing I'm
Once
saying
Dylan
is
Gabriel was ruled out of the game, that pretty much ended any kind of chance, I thought.
And we have not got to your offense yet, which was a clinic. I mean, just a machine. And so we were never going to match you score for score. But the 49-0 score that you see at the bottom of this YouTube page, or that you saw on television, or that it's emblazoned in your eyes, or that Texas fans can remind you on Twitter for the next 364 days, we could have avoided that, Kevin. We could have avoided 49-0. We could have made it at least a ball game. And yet, it blows my mind. I didn't understand what the heck was happening, and we continued to do it. And I don't know. Back real quick. Let's talk about your offense. My observation of your offense was that you did nothing spectacular. You just did all the little things correctly, and it was very efficient. Bijan was Bijan, and Quinn Ewers. Well, I'll tell you who else looked really good was Roshan Johnson. He had a great game. He was running over guys. He was attacking Stutzman and Aguebu and running them over.
Yeah, and those are big linebackers.
They're big, strong linebackers.
Small line. Those are big dudes too. Yeah, that was he definitely brought a physical presence to the game.
There was one in the second quarter that I turned to the guy next to me and I said, that looked like Bo Jackson running over Brian Bosworth for the Seahawks. You know what I mean? Because Roshan Johnson just lit the guy up. I mean, that guy had a really good game. But my point is, Kevin, y'all never bit off more than you could chew. You never tried to do something that you weren't. And it was really frustrating as an Oklahoma fan to go, man, they are literally just beating us on very well executed plays and nothing fancy at all.
Yeah, you and I have the same thoughts on that. I mean, they're just handing it off. I mean, this is so demoralizing for a defense, right? When you get into a 3rd and 4 and they just turn around and just hand the ball to the running back and he just goes straight ahead for 6 yards. You just kept seeing plays like that, just little short passes. Again, Sark last year in the game, he pulled out all the stops, right? Crazy misdirection, deep bombs down the field to Xavier Worthy. It was none of that today. And I thought, Venables schemed pretty good to keep Worthy from beating them deep. Which, I mean, I think Sark was fine with that. Okay, we'll just hand it off to Bijan, hand it off to Roshan, throw it to Whittington, throw it to Jatavian Sanders. No major plays. It almost seemed like they never really had to get out of, second gear offensively.
No, I agree with that.
They were just able to go right down the field.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I couldn't agree more. They never had to go off script. You had the one interception, which was just weird. I don't even know what was really happening there.
I think he said the ball slipped. He was trying to throw it away, and the ball slipped out of his hands.
Okay. Yeah,
he was off his back foot too. That was horrible, by the way.
Yeah, it was. It
didn't matter.
That was odd. But okay, so I think about y'all's not your first drive, but your second drive. So you've stopped us on 4th down. You've turned the ball over. No. Wait, I take that back. It's your second drive. You've stopped us. You've got the punt, and y'all march down and score a touchdown. In the middle of that, though, Ewers throws what looks like is going to be an interception to Woody Washington.
Yeah. Do it right. And
oh my gosh. Now, again, I don't think OU is winning this game, but just that little bit of momentum swing, the little bit of doubt it could have created. Of these, this just that little bit is kind of a what if. And Woody Washington, having to move to free safety, I thought did a really good job. I think he led the
I thought he was great.
Tackles.
And
I thought our corners held up against Worthy pretty well. A couple of those passes, Quinn just put it on the money. And
he's got some crazy accuracy.
But we didn't have the bust that we had against TCU. I thought we improved that. But I'll tell you, Kevin, the number one issue for the Oklahoma defense, there's no court. He had all day to throw. Quinn Ewers had all day long.
And remember, we talked about this in some of our preview episodes last week, is that we thought Texas was weak in the middle of the offensive line. I thought that OU would do something to try to exploit that. And if they did, it certainly didn't work because, I mean, there was just no interior pass rush at all. Ethan Downs got a couple of rushes from the edge. And again, but Quinn was able to slide around those, step up. I mean, I don't know if he got hit at all.
Well, I know they were worried about getting beat deep by Worthy, but you had to take some chances in this game. We took some offensively early, but you've got to take some chances, and they didn't do it. They just didn't do it. There was very few blitzes. They never put any pressure on them. And in addition to y'all being very efficient, I think that there were some really big, like not being able to put pressure allowed, especially in the first half. I don't know if you got the same feeling that I did. There were a number of really long developing plays for Texas, like long crossing routes that Quinn is able to sit back.
He's deadly, man. I mean, he's deadly when you give him time like that with his arm.
Dude, it was like a 7v7 game for him, man. He never got hit.
Yeah.
You think about what Ellinger was running for his life. Even when he was running the ball, at least he was running for his life. You know, there was just nothing. I mean, this is the third game in a row, the third loss, and the third time a quarterback has had the ability to do whatever they wanted to do. And Quinn Ewers didn't want to run. I think he had one first down pickup, which was a good one. But other than that, he just sat back.
Third and long.
Yeah, it was a good pickup, but he just sat back and picked us apart and it really never broke a sweat, I didn't think. I thought it was a very easy game. But back to OU's offense, Kevin. Okay, I think they should have stayed in the Wildcat. I think a lot of OU fans think they should have stayed in the Wildcat. Again, we're not going to win the game, but I think there were very, very much had some opportunities to score some points. But for the love of God, do we not have a quarterback on our 2 deep, 3 deep, or 4 deep that can complete a forward pass? Is this where Oklahoma?
That's the biggest question I have, right? I mean, between Davis Bevel, and it's not like they inherited those guys, right? Levy brought in Davis Bevel. Levy brought in General Booty, right? He brought in Nick Evers. So to have all those 3 guys and none of them can throw the ball, what are those guys thinking, right? On the sidelines, if you're General Booty, right? I came here, I can't get in the game and throw a pass. I know the system is based on timing, but you have a week, you can scheme something up, right? I mean, Marvin Mims, this dude is a great player, and he was a complete non-factor in the whole game. A complete non-factor.
Well, the only reason Jarrell Farouk was a factor was because he was in the run game, but there was nobody that was a factor in the passing.
By the way.
Yeah, he had a good game. He had a good game. But Kevin, I mean, if you think you're going, if you keep insisting on putting the quarterback back under center, okay, fine. It can't work where you're just going to hand it to the one running back that's behind there with nothing else to. I mean, it just, I don't know.
Yeah.
And if you're going to have him throw the ball, why are we scared to put Booty back there or Evers? Like, what did Bevel possibly show in practice that gives Evers or Booty zero opportunity to see the field and throw the ball? If that's what if we never saw Booty or Evers because we were running the Wildcat, okay, whatever. That's our best opportunity to win.
Sense.
But if we insist on having our quarterback stand back there, oh my God, I didn't get it.
He's got to do something. You know, and it looks like, at least over the last couple of games, one thing that's been so frustrating about Texas over the last decade is you feel like you have really good players that are wasting seasons, right? Because they're not getting the ball, right? And it feels like for OU that this is a wasted season for Drake Stoops, and it's becoming a wasted season for Marvin Mims. When you got guys like that, you know, who you really value, you can't waste seasons like that. So, you know, as a college football fan, as a guy who's pro player, I hate it for those guys personally.
Well, and you think about a Marvin Mims who didn't transfer, right? Elected to stay and be loyal and give this coaching staff a shot. It's frustrating. DG hit him early. You know, those first 3 games, Marvin Mims was the best player on the field. It's just what we've gone away from is I don't I am not one of these fans that's talking about changing coaching staffs. They're out of their any OU fan that's out there talking about changing coaching staffs is out of their mind. Crazy. But I think we can, as an OU fan, can 49-0 loss against a 3-2 Texas team that lost to Texas Tech and say that's not acceptable. I don't care if we don't have a backup quarterback or not. That's an unacceptable performance by an Oklahoma team. I don't think you can ever sit back and go, oh well, here's all the excuses why. 49-0. I mean, come on, Kevin.
And it almost looked like, besides the Wildcat stuff, it didn't even look like OU was trying to win the game. Like there was a game plan that was in place that we can try to win the game with. I've seen Texas over the years, despite how bad they've been the past decade. 2015 game comes to mind. Weren't very good, but they came up with a game plan. Let's try to win the game. If we do this and we do it right, we can try to win the game. It just never felt like they were trying to win the game. I didn't see, like you said, the blitzes, anything to try to confuse Quinn Ewers, or let's just load the box to make sure that Bijan doesn't get loose. That's our best way to try to win the game. It just looked like they were on a base defense for the majority of the game. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of, the only answer I have, and I'm not the defensive coach, and I was watching it from the stands, which is really hard. I haven't even watched the replay. I can't watch the replay. But you got the sense that he was trying, Venables or Roof, whoever, was trying to, in quotation marks, simplify the defense. And they simplified the defense and kept us from getting burned, kept busts from happening, but never really put any type of pressure on the offense. Like,
exactly. Any offensive coordinator will take that. Okay, we can't hit our shots, but if we can run for 6 yards a carry, who cares? What, we don't even need to take those shots.
No. Yeah, I don't know what
you can run for 6 yards and hit every pass across the middle.
You
with
were
no pressure.
You were 9.3 yards per pass and 5.9 yards per rush. So yeah, I mean, 289 yards passing, 296 yards rushing. And I'll tell you, you talked about this in the preview that Texas wasn't great at creating holes for Bijan. Well, they got better in a week, or they went up against an Oklahoma defensive line that doesn't know how to run protect, because you guys I was in the end zone. I could see it. Y'all were creating holes up and down that offensive line. It was, and I don't know. It was frustrating. But let me go.
I know there's always a transition, right? When there's a new coaching staff. Texas has dealt with this multiple times in the last decade, right? But with Venables being a defensive guy, right? And I know those players aren't his guys, but I feel like there's enough talent to where you should at least be competitive defensively, given what this guy has done, Brent Venables, right? I see talent on the field at every level, but I don't know. It's just completely out of sync right now. And I don't know how they fix it, over the next few games.
Well, I don't know. We'll talk about it in the preview game. Kansas is coming to town. Definitely not an opportunity to, fix it, I don't think. But
Jalen Daniels might be out, though. We'll get into that. But he got hurt against TCU. It looked serious. It didn't look good.
But their backup quarterback performed pretty well, didn't he?
He did. Yeah, I was really surprised. That's a good team. I learned something about them because they didn't flinch when he went down. They still were in that game to the end.
Another real pivotal moment for Oklahoma, which just blew my mind, was it's nearing the end of the second quarter. We're moving the ball down the field again, mostly in the Wildcat, and it's 21-0. But in the stands, we're thinking, with like 3 minutes left, we're thinking if we score and get the ball back at halftime, we can make it a 2-score lead, or it'll be a 2-score game. And then if we could score coming out of the half, it would be a 1-score game. If that makes sense, right? So it's 21-7. 21-7, we can move the ball down, make it 21-14 on the first drive of the half or whatever, and now it's a ball game. Now Texas has to think about it. Again, whatever. Who knows? I mean, we went 3 and out 6 times in that second half, so maybe it wouldn't matter. But it's 21-0. Texas has yet to stop the Wildcat up the middle, whether that was Braden Willis to Eric Gray or whether it was Braden Willis running it straight up. They did not stop it. And when I say didn't stop it, it was never a tackle for loss. It was always a forward play. In often cases, It was a 5 or 6 yard pickup. Why are we doing a jump pass there with not even using Braden Willis, using a different guy? What are we? Why?
Eric Gray. I don't know. Tough play. Tough play was completely blown up. I mean, by the time Eric Gray throws the ball, as soon as the ball leaves his hands, he has his hands on his head because he knows it's bad.
Yeah,
they were just all over it. Yeah, it was a rough moment, man. It was the most deflating moment of the game for a Sooner fan, I'm sure.
I guess you could say that they were trying to make something happen. It just seems really odd that you're making that happen with Eric Gray when you've got a Braden Willis who can make a pass, or you've got 3 minutes left to go in the half. You really don't want to give Texas the ball back. So maybe we just keep running the ball down their throat, make them figure out a way to stop us, and try to put some points on the board just running the ball, which I think we would have been able to do. We'll never know, but I think we would have been. Again, make it respectable. 21-7 at halftime versus 28-0 is a radically different game.
It sure is. Absolutely. And then once the turnover, of course, Texas goes down. And that pass from Quentin Ewers to Jatavian Sanders was just, best throw I've seen all season as far as, because the coverage wasn't bad. Linebacker underneath, safety over the top, and he just fits it right in between them. In stride.
That was a pro level pass. That was NFL level pass. That was definitely his best pass of the game. And it sucked. It sucked for Oklahoma, but it was a good pass for him. Anyway, we get to halftime, and then after that, it was over. Kevin, I haven't left an OU Texas game. I've gone to every game since 2014. I went to the 2008 game, the 2006 game, and the 99 game. I've been to all of those games. I have never left early. And some of those were losses. 99, 06, 08. I've never left early for a game. I couldn't do it. I got through the middle of the third quarter and I couldn't do it. I was so frustrated with what I was seeing from Oklahoma and so frustrated with how you guys were just going about your business. And serious stuff. Is everything okay?
Yeah, it was good.
Okay. All right, good. But does that make sense? I had to leave. I had to go to the state fair. I had to go outside and get a...
Listen, man, I wouldn't be able to stay either. No way. Yeah, it's too much, man. Look, I was fortunate that I wasn't at either of the blowout games in the early 2000s, 2000 and 2003. I wasn't at either one of those. So I've never had to have the decision to leave early. I've been at several losses. I was at 01, 02, 04, which was a shutout, 12-0, when Adrian Peterson ran wild over Texas. But I've never been in that predicament to have to decide to leave early. But I completely understand you doing so. Yeah,
it was. I don't know. So basically, if we look at it, Texas's trajectory has changed. Y'all are firmly in a position where you can play for the Big 12 championship. You do have the toughest games ahead of you, I think. Baylor, Oklahoma State, Kansas, Iowa State, TCU. But ours is we're reeling, and it's just so disconcerting because I can't remember the last time you could say an Oklahoma team was reeling, but we are in a position where we're wondering what's going to happen the rest of our season. And we're getting Kansas next week, who is a very good team, not a fluke. And I just don't know how we respond. I don't know how this team responds. If we have Dylan Gabriel, maybe we respond. But if we don't, I don't know what to make of this season, and it's becoming increasingly frustrating to watch this team play football.
Yeah, I think we all realized yesterday how important Dylan Gabriel is to this football team, right? And a lot of people have been kind of down on him. I think I've been higher than the majority of, or at least a lot of OU fans have been on Dylan Gabriel. And I think we saw exactly why yesterday, because the offense just looked completely lost and inept. And the inability to throw a pass down the field. I mean, it was shocking, right? And with these guys, you've got to figure there's one person who can make a throw.
Oh, dude, this is Oklahoma. It's just unbelievable. But anyway, I want to congratulate you. I want to congratulate the University of Texas. It was a very nice win, a historic win. And I already can't wait until next year. In addition, our other two picks, Kevin, you had TCU beating Kansas. I got to tell you, I think I would have had Kansas if their quarterback stayed healthy. They were playing really good. They were not a fluky team. They were not a fluky team against TCU.
Forth, though. No, not at all. No fluke at all. It was a back and forth game. But man, Quentin Johnston, who we talked about in the OU preview against TCU, finally went off. He didn't do much against OU. Really didn't have to, but I think he had over 200 yards receiving yesterday. Let me see. I got it pulled up here.
So Quentin what Johnston, is it?
Again, I think he's going to be a first-round pick. He had 14 catches, 206 yards receiving with a touchdown against Kansas on the road in Kansas. So,
we've got. Do we have Oklahoma State TCU this week? Is that right?
And Fort Worth.
My gosh.
Yes. Yeah, 2 unbeatens. The last 2 unbeatens in the Big 12 going head to head.
Oh, that's going to be fantastic.
It should be fun.
We'll be picking that game.
They got tested for sure.
They
did.
Oklahoma State that was surprising
by Texas Tech.
So, are you thinking after Texas beats Oklahoma as bad as they do, and Texas Tech gives Oklahoma State all they want, does that change your mind on how good Texas Tech is? Are they better than you thought they were?
Maybe. I think you have to say they are, right? I would imagine Oklahoma State appeared to be ready to play. It was back and forth. They were able to make some plays against the Oklahoma State defense. They buckled down late in the fourth quarter. I don't know why, because I didn't watch all the game because it started when the Texas game was still on. But Donovan Smith wasn't playing. They had another quarterback in, and they seemed to be moving the ball pretty well with him in. A guy named Baron Morton, I think the kid's name was. And he looked good out there. So maybe Texas Tech is better.
Well,
so maybe that makes that loss better for Texas. So
I think Oklahoma State TCU is going to
be nuts.
Yeah, it's going to be nuts. And next week, it's Oklahoma State TCU is just going to be a heck of a game. And then lastly, we had Tennessee LSU, and Tennessee just killed them. And we both had that. Texas, you were a winner all the way through. You won all 3 games, Texas, TCU, and Tennessee. That gets you back to 500 for the year. Congratulations. I had OU, Kansas, Tennessee, and so I am still in the 2 games under 500, or actually 4 games, I guess, 8-12. 8-12. So I've got to make a little bit of run, but that's okay. That's all right. We're going to bounce back. Just like this Oklahoma Sooner team.
Real quick.
We are going to bounce back. Yeah.
I know you don't think you learned a lot from Texas because of how bad OU played yesterday. But going forward, what do you think they can do here? Do you think they can make a realistic run at the Big 12 with the way their defense is played overall? Again, they're averaging 20 points allowed per game throughout the entire season. And now that they have their quarterback back, Quinn Ewers, opens up the entire offense. Okay.
Let me pull your schedule up.
Because I am trying not to get too excited because I've seen this story before, right? And a lot of times it ends with me being very disappointed. But when I look at the schedule there, I think there's a slight chance It'll be tough.
So you've got
end up in the Big 12 championship game. What do you think?
You got Iowa State next. That's a win. So you'll be on a 3-game winning streak. Yeah, that's a win. So that's a three-game winning streak. It really, you're going to answer it You're going to answer it in 2 weeks against Oklahoma State. I'm not prepared to say they're playing in a Big 12 championship. I'm not prepared. I'm not prepared to say you're playing for a Big 12. But I will tell you this: Quinn Ewers makes y'all so much more dynamic, and his numbers don't necessarily indicate that even in this game. But you never got the sense he was going to miss. I mean, I guess he had 10. I guess he had 10 incompletions. It sure didn't feel like that. He was zipping the ball in, great touch, great location, doing the right reads. It was just it's such a different offense than it is with Hudson Card. It seems laborious. It seems like you're having to make something happen. And Bijan, you can key in on Bijan. He's got to break 500 tackles just to get 5 yards or whatever the case may be. Not so with Ewers. It's more balanced. It's more. It just puts your offense in a much better position. What I still don't know. Here's the thing we don't know about Texas though. More than the offense is we really don't know about this defense. And I want to give you credit. You had a shutout against Oklahoma, your first shutout since 1965. But you have to agree, Kevin, that was the worst offense you've ever seen in your life, either from an Oklahoma team or
no argument
almost any Big 12 team since Kansas from 3 or 4 years ago. It was god awful. So I don't know how good your defense is. They made plays. They made an interception. I'm not taking anything away from them. That to me is your bigger question mark. If your defense shows up against Oklahoma State, then you can make a run. We'll know it in 2 weeks. Is that reasonable? I don't think I'm being unfair there.
Yeah. Of course. And it's a bit of a gauntlet too coming up though, right? It's Oklahoma State in Stillwater.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's at Kansas State. So 2 straight road games. Okay. And remember, Sark has not won. He's only won 1 true road game. That was last year against TCU. So at Oklahoma State, at Kansas State, then TCU in Austin, and then at Kansas, and then Baylor in Austin. So the toughest part of the schedule is still ahead, but I do feel like anything is possible. The Big 12 it's already been crazy, and it's just only going to be
here's the deal. You look at that. Here, you look at that stretch of games that you have, and Oklahoma has. Well, it's a little bit different because we saw West Virginia, I guess. But you look at that stretch of games, and Iowa State and Baylor are the least toughest teams on that schedule.
Yeah.
And you could still lose to them. You could still lose to you could lose to Baylor. You won't lose to Iowa State, but you could lose to Baylor.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So
it's gonna be wild, man.
I don't know, man.
OU.
I think it's. Let's look at OU's schedule real quick.
You got Kansas here in Norman this Saturday. Then you go to Iowa State. Then you have Baylor in Norman. At West Virginia. The Bedlam game, which is in Norman this year. And then you go to Lubbock to face Texas Tech Thanksgiving weekend.
Let me ask you this. Does Oklahoma... The question for Texas is, do you play for a Big 12? The question for Oklahoma, and this is a legitimate question, are we bowl eligible?
Yeah, you need 3 more wins?
3 more wins. Where do they come from?
Yeah. We want to see, I guess the concern is, right, if Gabriel comes back, I feel like the offense will be better, right? He can get the ball to the playmakers.
Right.
But again, I don't know how this defense improves. Now, playing Iowa State will help because their offense isn't great at all. Same with Baylor. I think the difference with Baylor, they lost a lot of talent, especially on defense. The defense has still been solid, but the offense, they're not very explosive. I think that's what's held them back in a couple of their losses to BYU and to.
I think we can beat Iowa State, Baylor, and West Virginia, right? That gets us bowl eligible. Those 3 games get us bowl eligible.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Oklahoma's bowl eligible. looking at that schedule, ours is not the gauntlet that yours is, because we've already gotten rid of K-State and TCU. So
Right.
I don't know, man. It's going to be a fascinating run for you guys, and for us, it's humbling and concerning. And we've got to switch. Oklahoma fan has to switch their mindset to building towards the future, building towards a finished product, building towards a recruiting class that we've got, building towards next year. And that's a shock to the system for OU fan, but unfortunately that's where we're at. Kevin, again, congratulations
on about the recruiting class, real quick. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but any concern to keeping the recruiting class together? It's a great class you have so far.
I asked you
the negative recruiting stuff. You know how it is.
I asked you the question before the Texas game. If you lose to Oklahoma, what's that do to Sark? And clearly you just flip that narrative on its head. Now for Oklahoma, I hope that our recruits believe in our coaching staff. And if they believe in our coaching staff, then I think we're fine. But it's going to make it really hard to get those big wins that we want down the line. The Peyton Bowens, those kind of guys down the line. It's going to be really hard to get those wins.
Here's what my concern about that for OU is that last year, you look at Texas signed a good recruiting class, right? After going 5-7. So it can be done, right? But the concern I have, the difference is with those games that Texas lost, right? They went on a 6-game losing streak, starting with the OU game last year. But in all those games, except for one, the Iowa State game, all of them were 1-score losses, where you can see some good things being done, especially offensively, but on both sides of the ball. Okay, close game, close loss to OU, to Oklahoma State, to Baylor, to Kansas as well, but it was still Kansas. We didn't know Kansas was Kansas yet because that's Jalen Daniels' first start, right?
Right.
But they were all close games, 1-score games. So I think you could sell the hope there. My concern for OU is if these blowouts keep happening and there's no, the defense continues to look like it has, those defensive recruits might waver a little bit. So
I will say, listen, I think it's an absolute concern. I think you're right on the money. At this point, Oklahoma has to be concerned about the psychological difference between a blowout and losing a close game. Losing a close game means we're fighting and we're competing and we're there and the ball didn't break our ways. Getting beat 49-0 means we didn't even show up, right? So I agree with you completely. The only thing I would think that we're probably selling to recruits right now is you could play next year. And we're not just saying that. We need you. You would play next year. And I think
I have another question though on that.
Yeah.
Sorry, man.
No, it's well deserved. It's well deserved.
You, man. You guys are.
But I think we gotta.
They're just questions. More questions and criticisms here, but a lot of the young guys aren't playing. I would figure with what's happening, you would just say, you know what? I'm just gonna roll with the young guys. You got talented freshmen on campus. You got talented DBs. Clayton Smith, 5-star linebacker who signed last year. Is he injured? Because I didn't see him at all. I don't think he was even on a participation report. Or is he in the doghouse? I don't know if you know anything about it. I'll do some research. We can find out and we can talk about it on the next episode. But like, where is he at? He's a 5-star linebacker from last year. And I just haven't seen him on the field. I'm just curious, are these guys just struggling to pick up the scheme?
Well, first of all, I mean, let's that you first of all, great question. Let's think about a player that we have seen. Okay, a young player that we have seen, Jared Kanik. I mean, the kid comes on and in 2.5 quarters leads the team in tackles, makes big play after big play, and we haven't seen him since. He was
covering kicks on Saturday. I saw him covering kicks on Saturday, but not on defense.
And so I don't know. I don't know if there's a philosophy behind that. I don't know if they're trying to stick with experience or whatever Kevin, I wish I could say when we lose 49-0, I think everything deserves to be questioned. And I think you are right to question it. I think an OU fan, I think okay to question. I really do. I think there's a difference.
And this is me putting myself in the mind of OU fan. Like if I was an OU fan, this is what I would be wanting to know.
Well, and I think you're right? I mean, I think that there's a difference between like hating on the team and not supporting the team and not being and being a real fan that really wants to know what the heck's going on. I think it's okay to ask those questions.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to go, okay, I think Brent Venables will get it turned around. I think he's a good hire. I still think he's a good hire. Ted Roof is recruiting his tail off. All of these things are positives on the defensive side of the ball. My question continues to be, why can't we pressure the quarterback? That's not an accusation. It's a question. For 3 games, we had so much pressure on the quarterback. All we could talk about was Ethan Downs and Reggie Grimes, and it was fantastic, and it has been non-existent for 3 games. Your question, which I think is also a question of a lot of Oklahoma fans, when you've got talented 5-star guys, 4-star guys, why aren't they seeing the field, especially in opportunities like you could have seen them in Cotton Bowl when you're getting your tail kicked? You could have seen them in TCU. There's a lot of situations. It's the same. It's literally the same question as the quarterback, though, right? It's the same question as the quarterback. Booty and Evers, I'm sorry, Davis Bevel, you're not any good, or they're putting you in the worst positions in the world. It's impossible to think that those guys are worse than him. It's impossible.
I agree.
You can't even imagine. You can't even set in a world where you're like 3 yards for, 3 completions for 59 yards or whatever the number was. It was just insane. So,
I think it was 6 completions for 39 yards, I believe.
Yeah.
Also, is it possible that Venables is maybe struggling with the adjustment from being a defensive coordinator to being a head coach? And maybe he's a little in over his head right now. I'm not saying that can't be changed. But this is a first-time head coach, right? Is that adjustment maybe a little tougher than he might have expected?
Well, you have to
just
say
because
yes.
It's hard to make sense of some of these questions that we have, right? It doesn't seem like it should be that difficult. I know, like, we're not college football coaches, right? But it just seems like
so there's two schools. We might get a little deeper than I anticipated we would tonight, but I love it because I've actually have there's a couple of prevailing thoughts on that, right? So there's the prevailing there's one group of OU fan who thinks that Venables is too engaged on defense, right?
Okay.
And he's too engaged on defense, and he's missing the larger picture. He's missing what's happening on offense. He's missing managing the game plan. He's putting too much trust in the offensive guys, and he's just focused on defense. And he doesn't know quite yet how to delegate defensive tasks to the defensive staff.
Okay.
And then there's the other side that thinks he needs to do what made him successful, which is call the defense, coach the defense, get the defense put in the position they need to be in, and let the offensive team, the offensive staff do what they're good at, right? So there's 2 different schools of thought, and that's happening right now simultaneously. Simultaneously, you have these 2 diametrically opposed theories on why we're so bad. And I point those both out to say, I don't know which is the right answer but clearly, and here's my question, Kevin, is you take K-State. K-State to me is like, now that you're starting to see a pattern of football with them, okay? Tulane allows 14 points at K-State. Iowa State only let K-State score 10 points. So I have to reiterate, yeah, sure, Iowa State's a great defense. I get all of that. But how are those 2 teams forcing K-State into such low point totals, and we couldn't hold them under 40? It just doesn't match up. And so I don't know. I don't know. And that's where I have the hard time with it is I don't understand. I don't know. Does he need to spend more time on defense, less time on defense, more time with the whole team, less, I don't think clearly he hasn't found the sweet spot yet. I think he will. But clearly he hasn't found the sweet spot yet. But here's the thing. When you get beat 49-0 to your arch rival, except for special teams, which I thought was pretty good, everything went wrong. Every single thing went wrong.
Great special teams. And I knew OU had a special teams advantage coming into the game. Everything was bad.
Everything went wrong. Offensively, defensively, injuries. But I don't know. It's flabbergasting. And unfortunately, or fortunately for OU fan, we haven't had to answer these questions. We haven't had to think about things like this in a very long time.
Listen, I'm asking these questions because these are the questions that I've had of Texas over the last decade. Questionable teams, personnel decisions, all that.
Kevin, I agree. I agree that they offensively, I continue to have issues. I had issues with K-State. I had issues against TCU. They're abandoning the run too early. And then against Texas, if we're so outclassed, and maybe you can answer this question for me. When you're running the Wildcat, why do you keep the quarterback on the field? Why is Davis Bevel still in the formation?
I don't know. Put a receiver on there. You can even fake and throw a quick pass out to him.
I got to tell you.
There's no need for it. He didn't need to be in the game.
Yeah, this isn't like we're splitting out even a Kyler Murray or a Baker Mayfield who actually is athletic and could do something. It was a wasted position on the field. Half the time I saw that corner almost standing up straight, like he wasn't even gonna even pretend it. And it's like,
and also another concern with this modern era of college football, right? You have the transfer portal, what you don't want to see as an OU fan is a lot of your talented players, those guys we talked about, who are on the roster but not playing, hit the transfer portal. Those are talented football players.
Well,
so I don't envy Brent Venables right now. As happy as I am as a Texas fan for the win, I don't envy Brent Venables right now.
I think there's an element too that says he has to play those starters in hopes that they don't all transfer.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's got to play Billy Bowman. He's got to play Woody Washington. He's got to play Jaden Davis. He's got to play those two linebackers, Aguebo. He's got to play Deshaun White because Kanik starts playing, and maybe Deshaun White's transferring. And even though Kanik is good, is he as good as Deshaun White? We would rather have both. It's a different world we're in, and I definitely don't know how to adjust it. I don't envy the position he's in. I think he's the right guy for it. But he's got to get some things figured out. And I think that's okay for Oklahoma fan to say things got to get figured out. Things have to change. There has to be a more cohesive offensive game plan. And defensively, we've got to get back to being a more aggressive defensive front. When you lose 49-0, it's all fair. I'm sorry. Freaking Gary Gibbs had he had a great record, except he lost to Texas every year. So he got fired. Like that's just the way it goes. And Gary Gibbs ended up being a really, really good defensive coordinator in the NFL. He was a great coach. But if you don't beat Texas, let alone lose to them 49-0, you're going to get questions. Yeah. And these are questions that deserve to be answered. And Kevin, everything you're saying is a legitimate question that's going to be asked. And I'm curious to see how he answers. But hey, we're at 48 minutes. Texas, historic win. Congratulations. Oklahoma, work to do. We'll get back at it. I know Texas is excited for next week against Iowa State, which should be a nice win. Oklahoma getting Kansas. We'll talk about that in our preview show Wednesday or Thursday. I can't wait to talk to y'all later. Kevin, congrats on the win. Boomer.
Thank you, sir. Hook 'em.